I mean, it is going to be like just a tiny bit cooler next week, but not by much.
A bee's dick.
Well, I
cooler?
wasn't going to say it, Sue, because I thought it's very inappropriate to say on the podcast, but you've said it now. So anyway, welcome back everyone to another episode of Tell Me Where I'm Going Wrong. This is a weekly podcast hosted by two exes who are good friends, and my name is Josh. I'm one of the hosts, and welcome back.
Hi, and I'm Sean, and I'm one of the hosts, and welcome back. You know, it's funny me saying that bee's penis thing.
Like, are you going to censor yourself even though you've already said bee's dick?
Yes, like I'm just trying to make it more palatable. Is penis more palatable than dick?
No comment, Sue.
I was just in the Unity Diner, the vegan restaurant in East London, a not-for-profit restaurant that raises money for an animal sanctuary. Check it out if you can. But the chef in there his name is Greg, and Greg and I are good mates, and we have a lot of laughs together about Australianisms because he's from Canberra. And we were just talking this afternoon about some of the ridiculous sayings that Australians have that don't translate when you go around the world and you try and recreate them. And I was telling this story about how when I was a primary school teacher and I was working in, I don't know, like North London somewhere, and I was still trying to get used to not saying pants to refer to underwear, because in Australia it's like trousers or shorts, they're your pants. But in England, pants means your underwear or your knickers. And there was one of the students in my class who was like wriggling around a lot and wouldn't sit still. And in front of everybody, I said, what's your problem? Have you got ants in your pants? And this poor little girl started crying because everyone was laughing because, you know, that would mean that she had ants inside her underwear.
But we still use that expression, ants in your pants.
I know, but I felt bad because I felt like it had a different layer of like rudeness or disrespect because it means underwear, you know? And so I felt really bad then, and I had to try and like make her not cry. I mean, that school was quite intense. It was also where one of the kids in my class punched out a window or threw a chair through a window. This was year 2. You know what? No, year 4.
I don't know what that means.
Well, they were probably about 8 or 9 years old.
Jesus.
8 years old. It was a very intense school.
Was it a special needs class or a special needs?
No, there were
school?
special needs, but it wasn't a designated special needs classroom. It was a mainstream classroom. And it was just intense. But so Greg and I were talking about sayings like that today that are uniquely Australian. And we were joking that maybe we would do a vegan supper club that was Australian themed, that would have Australian foods done vegan.
Okay, so what would you have?
Well, there'd have to be some sort of Vegemite. You know, I went in there one day and he made like an asparagus dish and he did a smear of Vegemite on the plate and it had some other sort of vegan cream with it. It was delicious. And
Vegemite's lovely.
I don't know, maybe like seafood is really big in Australia. So maybe some sort of vegan seafood, you know, like tacky 1970s stuff like prawn cocktail or...
Yeah. What about a pie floater?
Yeah, pie floater. So anyway, we've decided if we do
Lamingtons, you could have
Lamington for sure for dessert, or a pavlova, or a lemon meringue pie.
Passion fruit slice, or vanilla slice.
Yeah. So we've decided that if we do the event, we'll name the dishes all different funny Australian names. Like we might have a cocktail, like a welcome drink called Ants in Your Pants. The main might be called, what do you think this is? Bushweek. What else could we name?
Well, I mean, you could have a sausage sizzle, couldn't you? You could do a vegan sausage sizzle.
Or we were thinking the main could be like an Australian version of a Chinese meal, and we could call it a succulent Chinese meal. And so I think it'd just be a really funny and fun thing to do. And
there are so many Australians in London as well. Like you definitely get a lot of like interest from that.
And I also think that it just is ripe for making fun of, you know, it's quite a hilarious thing to send up.
I loved your sister Michelle's comments on last week's video. where we were talking about LMICs, low and middle income countries,
Yeah.
and she said in Australia it means something else. Let me in, cunt.
Oh my God.
Outrageous. Um,
Charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent, as they would say on RuPaul's Drag Race.
I mean, I don't watch it, but I know of that. Um, so
And
go on.
sorry, I was just going to say, and before we start properly the episode, I suppose we
Oh, we're
are
not
in it.
started yet.
I don't know. I suppose we're in it, but it's boring to everyone. But we have to address the sweating elephant in the room, which is the heat wave that never ends in England.
Oh my
I've
God.
never known anything like this in the UK. Have you?
No, no, like last night was so uncomfortably hot. I woke up all through the night, like drenched in sweat, like my mattress was soaked. And I was just like, what the actual fuck? I can't, this today at lunch, at work in my lunch break, I fell asleep,
Were
which I
you flat
never
out?
do.
Were you flat out like a lizard drinking?
Uh-huh. Um,
And
yeah, it's
it
unbearable.
and it's going to be hot again next week. Or I just watched a YouTube video, and it was some amateur, what are they called, meteorologist, climatologist, who was
Well,
saying that they believe that there's another record-breaking heat wave coming, based on the data that they've got from different
yeah. Well, I
agencies
mean, it
around the
wouldn't
world.
surprise me, but then also, you know, the British climate or the weather in the UK is so whimsical that it could be 18 degrees and raining for the rest of the summer. So I suppose we've got to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I like it, but yesterday I had to take a bus in North London. So from my house here in the city of London to North London, the bus journey was almost an hour, and it was, what, 33 degrees or something outside, or 35 degrees?
Mm.
I think it was over 50 degrees on this bus. It was not.
They're like
It was
ovens. They really are
Yeah,
like ovens.
like
Yeah.
when you stepped onto the bus, it was like hot air from an oven being
Hmm.
opened, blowing in your face,
Yeah.
and it was like that. I had to sit upstairs on the bus.
Yeah.
Everyone else was crowded downstairs, but there was nowhere to sit, and I was gonna be on the bus for an hour. So I went and sat upstairs. All the windows were open. I mean, they have air conditioning on there, but it
Oh,
was doing
it does
nothing.
nothing. But also,
So
like, every surface inside the bus is fucking hot to
to
touch. Like, you
touch,
could
yeah.
fry food on it.
Well, I couldn't sit near the window because the heat radiating off the side of the bus was
Yeah.
so intense.
We are
So I had
so ill
this
prepared.
fan with me, and I had one of those spray cans of, like, cooling spray,
Hmm.
and it did nothing. It actually, I felt, was making it worse. Like, there was nothing. And I think I'm sick. I think I'm unwell from, what does heat
Yeah.
stroke do to you? Like, how does it affect you?
Well, it makes you really drowsy and confused, can give you a headache. Um, I don't think I've got heat stroke, but I'm heat stressed, if you know what I mean. Like, I know that, like, um, I'm having a physiological response to the heat, but also from the lack of decent, solid sleep as well.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable, but we're so ill equipped for the heat. I know you know this because I told you. I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast last week or not, but I was
Yeah.
on a bus a week and a half ago,
Yeah.
and it actually caught fire. Like, I'm not
Yes, I think you did
joking. Did
mention
I
it
mention
on.
that? Yeah. Um, this country and it wasn't like a really old bus, but it was so no air conditioning, really hot, and then it actually caught fire. I mean, this country, that's like a microcosm of like the British response to the heat
Yeah.
or our
I mean, I
ability.
do like the heat, but yeah, when you're somewhere where it's not set up to deal with it, it
Mhm.
makes life tough. Like
There's,
when you're on public transport that doesn't have any or adequate air conditioning, it's dangerous.
I know the answer to this is almost certainly no. But if any of our listeners or viewers in the London area have a swimming pool, I will come over and be your new best friend because that would make such a difference. Like, imagine if you could just jump into a nice swimming pool now. Oh my
Would you
God.
know that my gym here on the estate shut
Oh, you've
down?
got a swimming. It
Yeah, but
shut
that shut
down.
down. But I've joined another gym about a 12-minute walk away, and that's got a swimming pool as well.
Oh, really? Why
But I
did the one on
haven't.
your estate shut down?
Drama. It's. I live on an estate that's run by the City of London, the borough or whatever it's called, the City of London, the Corporation of London, and it was also being run. It had been outsourced. The management of the health center had been outsourced to a company that went bankrupt or insolvent. And so
Mm,
the City of London said they're going to shut it until at least the end of the year because it needs major works, and then they're going to put it out to tender. So
yeah.
I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, and it's all boarded up. It's such a shame. There's a beautiful swimming pool there that's all
Let's
boarded up.
break in. Let's break in. I wonder if they've left
Well,
the water in there.
for this heat wave, imagine how much that pool would have been loved.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've been going to the gym a couple of times a week to my new gym, but I haven't used the pool yet, which is included in my membership. So I do
Mhm.
need to.
Oh my God, yeah.
I do need to get in there now. Can we talk about some news? It's not super happy, but we used to a lot on here talk about people who had died in the news, and I
Mm.
don't feel like there was anyone that was on our radar for a while that we've talked about. But there were
No,
two people this week that caught my attention. Who was the singer that passed away?
Bonnie Tyler.
So do you want to let people know who Bonnie Tyler is if they don't know?
She was a Welsh singer, and she, I suppose, is most famous for the song "Total Eclipse of the Heart." I mean, I don't know anyone that wouldn't know that song. I don't think. I
Uh,
think even young people know that song.
Yeah, it's like, well, Hill is a generation or half a generation younger than us,
Mm.
and that's his favorite song. Like he listens to it nearly every day, and this is before she died.
Yeah.
He he's a massive fan of that song. I mean, was it used in some media that obviously it's like a timeless, iconic song, but was it used somewhere that younger people became familiar with it, or do you think it was just like through social media?
Um, I don't know. You'd have to ask a young person, Sue, which I'm not. I mean, it might have been used in sort of. I mean, the song originally came out in the '80s, but it might have been re-released, or it might have been used in some film or TV show later on. I don't know. I know
Yeah.
that I know that sort of around the time of beginning of memes, I suppose. When would that have been? In the noughties? There was a
Yeah,
sort of, a video doing the rounds, and it was the film clip, I think, to Total Eclipse of the Heart, wasn't it? And but it
not
was
sure.
I don't know. I'll try and find the thing, and it was all like a sort of comment on her facial expressions in the video.
Oh, okay.
It was, yeah, very of
Wha
its time.
Some of the people that, do you know any of her other songs off the top of your head?
No, I don't. I mean, maybe if you said them, I'd know them, but I don't.
Well, I Need a Hero was a massive
Oh,
song.
was that Bonnie Tyler?
Yeah, right? I need a
Yeah, actually,
hero.
yeah, I can yeah, it's
Yeah,
her voice, of course, yeah. I
and
mean, she
there's
had
ano
such a distinctive voice, like, such a
yeah,
gravelly, voice, it was incredible.
and, did you know that she was related by marriage to Catherine Zeta-Jones?
I did not.
And because I saw on the news today, Catherine Zeta-Jones was, like, being asked about her reaction to the death, and I was like, "Well, I know they're both Welsh, but that's a weird thing to do, isn't it?" And I thought there must be something else about that, and then I looked it up before, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, I think she's, like, the cousin or something of Bonnie Tyler's husband."
No,
And
right,
so I
okay.
think, another song that was massive when I was a little boy, and I don't know if it was massive all around the world, "It's a Heartache."
No, I don't know that, I don't think.
It's a heartache, nothing but a heartache.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, of course, yeah,
like it
yeah,
was such a massive
yeah.
song. Holding Out for a Hero, not I Need a Hero. It was Holding Out for a
Holding Out
Hero,
for
it was
Her,
called.
yeah.
Totally Eclipse Our Heart. There was another big song, If You Were a Woman and I Was a Man. Do you remember? If you were a woman and I was a man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway, she had a lot of big songs, but it
yeah,
was very from like the late 70s up to the like mid 80s or so.
mhm.
That was like her her sort of imperial phase. But so other people that spoke up, I mean, Cliff Richard always sticks his beak in, doesn't he? And he said, another wonderful friend gone too soon. Brian Adams talked about her having a wonderful voice. Carol Vorderman said stuff. But then, like, what I find weird was like Keir Starmer, um, Kemi Badenoch, and Zach Polanski all have had headlines on the BBC throughout the day with their reactions to the death of Bonnie Tyler. Oh no, sorry, maybe I'm getting confused. I'm getting confused because Anne Widdecombe also died today.
How are you getting them confused?
I did see.
I was going to say, why are Keir Starmer and Kemi Badenoch and Zach Polanski
Okay,
commenting on Bonnie Tyler?
let me get this straight then. I did see a Keir Starmer headline about talking about Bonnie Tyler. Like, that's
Okay,
real. But
okay.
then just before I came on, I saw a picture of Zach Polanski on BBC homepage talking about Anne Widdecombe dying, and my brain just connected it that he was talking about Bonnie Tyler. I honestly think I've got heat stroke.
Yeah, it's the heat.
And so, but anyway, the Prince and Princess of Wales said they were deeply saddened by the death of their proud Welsh icon,
Bonnie Widdecombe.
of Bonnie Widdecombe, of uh, Anne and Tyler. But okay, now we have to try and explain
Okay.
who Anne Widdecombe is, because people aren't going to know if they're not. Even a lot of people in the UK wouldn't know who she
Well, yeah,
is.
younger people probably wouldn't have heard of her, but yeah, she was a conservative politician, Tory politician in the 90s, I would say.
Well, a long
Actually,
time.
no, actually 80s to right through to the 2010s, maybe.
Well, she was the MP for Maidstone in Kent for
Hmm.
23 years.
Right.
So that's a long time. But then after she was an MP, she jumped ship and became a spokesperson for the right-wing party Reform.
Well, she was UKIP first, wasn't she? And
Well,
then
yeah, and then she was
Reform,
Reform.
yeah.
But
Um,
she was very. I think it's fair to say she was very homophobic. She spoke openly against
well,
queer
but
people.
first of all, I think before we get into that, I think the police investigation is obviously ongoing, but it looks like she was murdered.
Yeah.
Looks like
I'm
she was
sorry, I'm
beat.
not laughing at that. I'm just laughing at the fact that I got Bonnie Tyler's death and
Bonnie
Anne
Tyler.
Widdecombe.
I know, but yeah, she was. It was a politically motivated murder. Looks like she
Yeah.
was beaten to death in her home, and of course,
But why do they think it was politically motivated? Where does that come from?
I suppose because she'd appeared on the radio on Wednesday. And well, actually, yeah, maybe not. Maybe it's not politically motivated. Um, but regardless of what the motivation was, obviously it goes without saying, I suppose, but we'll say it anyway, that Sean and I don't condone murder. And particularly, I suppose, for
That's a broad
political,
statement. That's a broad statement to say.
well,
I
Sue,
don't condone the murder of this person, but
but we can also, I think, talk about what a fucking bastard she was politically. Like, she
yeah.
had fucking awful views.
Yeah.
She left the Church of England because they started to ordain women as priests, and so she left and joined the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church. She was
Yeah.
incredibly anti-queer.
Yes.
She held some incredibly awful views. Um, but the thing I remember, sorry, thing I remember most is, do you know? I'll say his name. I won't say his last name.
Okay.
You had a friend called Simon in the noughties. Do you
Mm.
remember this? And we used to tease him and say that he had an Anne Widdecombe haircut. Do you remember?
Yes.
He
Yeah,
had a sort
because
of
she had this very sort of, not a bowl cut, but it was this like
bowl
shaggy bowl cut.
adjacent.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, some of the disgusting things she used to do, and I want to say this: I don't think it's, even if the most horrible thing has happened and she's been murdered, I think it's okay to talk about people's public voting record
Yeah,
and what they they've
Well,
done to
yeah,
oppress us.
that's the thing. Like, I saw an article on just before jumped online for this. I saw an article on the Guardian, and it didn't mention
Yeah,
any of her political views, and I was like, okay, well, it's
yeah,
okay to say it's not great that she was murdered, but
yeah.
also she was an incredibly divisive person.
Yeah, like she almost always voted against equal gay rights. She
Hmm.
voted 13 votes against, and she voted for absent
Yeah,
votes as well.
yeah.
Consistently voted against allowing terminally ill people to be given assistance to end their life.
Hmm.
Consistently voted for the Iraq War.
She
She,
was very pro-life. She really fought against the
or
access to
as some people
abortion,
might say, anti-choice.
anti-choice. Yeah.
She consistently voted against a transparent parliament. Like she would, be against them being held accountable for the choices they made.
Mm,
She voted against removing hereditary peers from the House of Lords. We've
mm,
spoken about the House of Lords a few times on here and how ridiculous it is. And
mm,
so she was really all for like maintaining that. And she sitting here while I'm fanning myself with my Kylie fan, she almost always voted against measures to prevent climate change.
mhm.
So she
Yeah.
wasn't a good person for anybody to have in public life. I mean, there were maybe some things she did that might have been seen as a little bit more like our way of thinking. Like, I think she was voted against hunting. Um, she voted for the hunting ban a few times, I think.
Okay.
But I mean, it doesn't excuse all of the horrible things she did. That a lot of people in the UK will remember that she was on Celebrity Big Brother, and
Oh,
she
was
was
she?
on there
Okay.
with Australian drag performer Courtney Act,
Oh, right.
and
Okay.
they got down to the final two together.
Really?
And what was really interesting, Courtney Act ended up winning that. Um, but they had Courtney was able to have a lot of really open and frank discussions about queerness and gender identity and homophobia and queerphobia and how it affected people. Anne was open to listening about it, but it really didn't change her views or the way that she
Mm,
was in public because she came out of there and got all embroiled with reform and UKIP. So, yeah, I don't think she was a good person. And, or at least if she was a good person, she didn't vote that way. She
mm,
voted against our interests. And
mm.
yeah, so it's a bit scary that how she might have died. Um, but anyway, there's the sort of two big celebrity deaths. I feel like we haven't spoken about celebrity deaths in a while,
No,
and
well,
they're
so
like,
they come in threes.
well, who else?
Well, I don't
I
know who's going to
I
be
did
next.
I did read about somebody else who died, but it was somebody who wasn't as famous as that.
Uh,
Um, they were like a voice actor or something. But anyway,
uh,
um,
um, we're talking though of politics and particularly of reform and UKIP.
yeah,
The other sort of big political news this week in the UK is that Nigel Farage, who is facing a f- several, I've actually lost count, several parliamentary inquiries into his finances and his lack of declaring where
and
certain
and
funds were coming from.
and I might just also add that there are actually I think some police investigations as
Yeah,
well, or it's
criminal investigations. Yeah,
at least been reported to the police.
yeah.
Yeah,
So he's facing all of these things, and he decided this week that and I actually still don't fully understand the situation, so you can tell me where I'm going wrong, maybe. But um, my understanding was that facing all of that, he decided to resign from his seat as a
yeah,
member of parliament for the Clacton constituency,
yeah,
which instantly forces a by-election, which we've spoken about obviously on here before,
yeah,
um, and is expected to win it again. But I don't understand how that works because he's still got these parliamentary inquiries and maybe criminal investigations going on.
right,
So he could win his seat in Clacton, but then the parliamentary inquiry, or plural,
yeah,
might then force another by-election, and all of this costs taxpayer money. I mean, when a
yeah,
by-election costs a lot of money for the
yeah.
government to run and to
Well,
administer.
the problem is that he is trying to preemptively get ahead of the narrative of him being corrupt or involved in at least suspicious activities with money or suspicions of corruption
Mhm.
or not declaring or at least being unethical. If it's not, I suppose corruption is like
It's
a
a
legal,
spectrum.
it's a legal term as well, whereas
Oh, right.
being unethical is more of a sliding scale.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
there are codes of conduct for members of parliament that they need to uphold certain standards, and which by all all arrows are pointing towards that maybe he didn't do that. He
Mm.
hasn't been upholding those standards. The story isn't really going away. I think he's tried the sort of the Trump routine of bluster and
Distraction.
distraction and acting like a victim
Mm.
and saying people are out to get him. It's like a witch hunt. And he is the leader of the Reform Party that we were just talking about, that Anne Widdecombe has been associated with up to her death. And, it's like mostly an anti immigration, weirdly anti worker. They're against like raising the minimum wage. There's lots of problems with it. It's seen as like the right party
Mm.
in the UK. And I think what he's trying to do is, well, what he said, I actually watched the press conference live online. I was so fascinated by what ridiculousness was going to happen. He said, I'm so sick of being targeted by the mainstream media and mainstream political parties that I'm going to resign, stand again, and I'm going to let the constituents of Clacton decide whether I deserve my role or not, or whether I'm guilty or not.
Mm.
And if they vote me back in again, that's the last I want to hear of it. So he's trying to force people
But
to accept that if he gets voted in again, that they shouldn't bother asking him anymore about the £5 million that he got
but
or the
mate, that's not
multiple
how it
gifts he got.
works.
No.
Like,
Also,
that's just not how it fucking works, mate.
the
Like, get a
problem
grip.
is though, a lot of those parliamentary inquiries that are going on, they're not legally binding.
No.
So they could say, we think that he
They're
this should
not
happen to him.
they're not
But
legally binding, but the party would, I don't know if it's ever happened that a party would kind of go against the findings of a parliamentary inquiry. I mean, that's what got Boris Johnson out. So even though that was a non-binding
yes,
thing, he was found to, I can't even remember what the actual term was, but he was found to have misled Parliament, or
yeah,
I don't know exactly what the wording was. But so, yeah, I think the Conservative Party had no choice. And I think, well, I don't know actually. Now I say it out loud, I was going to say I think Reform probably would too, but actually, they're such a bunch of fucking shysters
yeah.
that,
I mean, it is one big grift, and he
yeah.
hangs around this guy called Posh
Oh,
George.
Posh George, who calls
Is
him Daddy?
I wonder if he's related to Chicken George, but
Sue, let's not go there, Sue. Don't want to bring up that trauma.
this family, George Cottrell, I think his name is. They've been giving gifts to Reform and to Nigel Farage for years, and that's also been reported to the police by bankers for suspected money laundering. And so all of these different investigations are going on, and there's been on people's radars for quite a few years now. And Nigel Farage is acting that if he forces this by-election and he wins, that everyone should just forget about it and let him
Yeah,
get on with
you're
his
right.
campaign.
It is like a very sort of Trumpian political play, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, but I don't think it will wash. I mean, I think he probably will win. Um, but
Well, what's happened is most of the other major, or all of the other major parties have said they're not going to run a candidate
mm,
in this by-election because it's a farce
yeah,
and it's pointless and it's spending money on something that doesn't need to be spent.
yeah,
And so far, the only candidate who's put themselves forward is a candidate called Count Binface. And Count Binface is a character who pops up in a lot of elections and by-elections around the country. It's sort of like, I suppose, a parody or a joke character who tries to use humor and what do you call it? Like
Well, it's sort of it's a
like
it's mockery, isn't it? It's like
yeah, mockery
mocking
and
the political
absurdity
system.
to make fun of the political system and the political class. And so Count Binface has put himself up against, said he will stand against Nigel Farage for
Mm.
this seat, this MP seat in Clacton. It is
What?
so ludicrous.
Yeah. What is it? I mean, I don't obviously I don't think Binface will win. I think
Oh,
Farage will
and can
win.
we just say it's a guy who dresses up like in an old sort of highwayman outfit, but with a bin on his face with
Like
the
a
eyes
trash
cut out,
can.
a
Mhm.
trash can on his head, and upside down, and the eyes cut out so he can see out. And
What what is it about? I mean, yeah, Binface won't win, but what is it about sort of these? I was going to say clown-like, but maybe more like jester-like figures that is appealing to people. Because you look at Trump, you look at Farage, you look at Boris Johnson. Um, there are other like similar leaders in other parts of the world, whose names I forget, but or like what was his name? The Bolsonaro, the Brazilian president.
yeah,
What is it about these almost caricature like political figures that attracts voters? Like a people so disenfranchised or disinterested in politics
mhm,
that it takes someone like that to get their vote. Is that
yeah,
what's going on? Because, like you said before, like Farage has absolutely no fucking interest in
no,
making Britain a better place. I mean, it's
no,
so fucking obvious to most of us, I
yeah,
think, that
yeah,
Farage doesn't give a shit about working people.
no,
He is from aristocracy. He's fucking loaded, and he's just a fraudster, a shyster. And
yeah,
yet, and you could say the same thing about Trump. You could say the same thing about Boris Johnson.
yeah,
Um, these people don't have any vested interest in the betterment of a society or a country, a nation, or the world in general. And yet,
no,
people feel motivated to vote for them, and I find that terrifying, but also very interesting. Like it's
yeah.
odd. I don't get it.
So, I mean, talking about like caricatures, I mean, you don't get more caricature than Count Binface.
Hmm.
Um, Not to be confused with Lord Buckethead, who I think was another. Wasn't there another one?
Yeah.
But
Screaming
this,
screaming Lord Such.
but what's I find it amazing that there can be a legitimate election in 2026 where one of the candidates is an out and out grifter who is calling a by election for no reason apart from asking people to vote whether he's guilty
Yeah.
or not.
Facing multiple parliamentary inquiries,
Yeah.
potentially facing criminal charges. Yeah.
And then the other candidate can be somebody dressed up as a trash can
Hmm.
called Count Binface. I'm just looking
I mean
off to the side, looking at a picture of him. I can't believe it.
I
And
mean, I don't know what Binface's politics are, but I almost would rather them win. And wouldn't that be hilarious? But what was I going to say? I don't know. The thought came into my head and it left just as quickly.
well, I mean, I wonder. Yeah, I wonder what Binface's manifesto or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That there must be. Let me see if I can find any, even some of the top things that. Um, oh, there is a 2026 Binface. And it's like humorous, right? It's meant to be a parody or like a shit take on like I will cut your taxes and raise everyone else's. That's the first. That's the first one. Number two, all 99 flake ice creams to cost no more than 99p. Rephase the traffic lights on Liverpool Road to ease congestion. Corners to be refereed properly in football. People who use speakerphones on public transport to be conscripted. Wi-Fi on trains that
Got my
work.
vote, Sue.
Also trains that work. Like it goes on, and
Yeah, okay.
and it's quite funny. Some of it you can see as they're real issues that affect people. Some of it's funny, but like things like members of parliaments to lose their subsidy for cheap food and drink in parliament. I mean, that would make me
Fucking
want to vote for
fair,
someone.
fair go.
And then also this one, Count Binface to be the UK's entrant at Eurovision 2027.
Love it. But I don't know. Have we got time to get into it? Maybe. I
What's
think
that?
I think that the reason a lot of these figures on the right get votes is that they aren't afraid to talk about certain topics like immigration. And the problem, of course, is that working class people are seeing a reduction in their quality of life
Yeah.
because of capitalism, because of
Yeah.
billionaires, the billionaire
Hmm.
class. And so people are really feeling the squeeze financially.
Yeah.
And the people on the left don't really talk, or I say the left, I mean, look, the center and the center left, they're not really talking about that. And so all it takes is one of these, like, jester like populist right wing people to come in and start talking about that and say outrageous, awful, offensive, discriminatory things about people.
Yeah.
And suddenly they're winning elections.
Well, I think
And
that's why the Green Party in the UK has had a bit of a surge, is because they're using the same sort of populist tactics and speaking about radical change, but they are addressing things like the billionaire class and the elites and money
yeah,
hoarding, and you know, I think that's why they're having the success as well, and it's why someone
but
like
why?
Jeremy Corbyn did so
Yeah,
well with certain
yeah,
demographics, is because he was saying, like, there are people that would have voted for are swinging between voting for Greens or Reform, and that's hard for you and I to believe,
yeah,
but it's the business as usual,
yeah.
mainstream political class speaks
It's
to nobody
it's an
except
it's an anti-establishment vote, isn't it? Either way.
yeah.
But
Hey, before sorry,
go
you were
on.
gonna say
Well, I
something?
was just going to quickly say, I obviously am not pinning many hopes on Andy Burnham, but hopefully, Labour can gain more traction, and he can maybe start talking about things like immigration. I mean, I just use immigration
Well,
as a uh, sort of placeholder because there are lots of issues. But
yeah.
I think the problem with the Greens talking about it, it's great, obviously, and I do vote Green. But I think for a lot of people, because the Greens have not been in power before on a national level, um, anywhere in the world, I don't think, um, they it's very hard for people to put such confidence, such faith in them to be able to run the country. So even though
But
people might,
what I would love to see is that when people use that argument, well, these people haven't been in power, so they don't know how. But we have had these other people in power, and look at the mess we're in. So
oh yeah,
we need to be
I know, but
brave. We need
I,
to be brave. People collectively need to be brave enough to make seismic
yeah, but
changes to the way our political system works.
I don't know how you actually enact that.
Hey, I was listening, just to change subject in the last few minutes. I listened to the Louis Theroux podcast today,
Mm.
to an episode that came out a little while ago, and it was an interview with Melanie Chisholm,
All
who
right.
a lot of people would know as Mel C or Melanie C. She was in the Spice
Or
Girls. She
Sporty
was not
Spice.
Sporty Spice. I was so, like, I don't think it's like a super fascinating story that she has to tell, but it was so upsetting to hear about her trauma and what it was like coming through that pop machine and the Spice Girls and what it did to her and her sense of self and like her
Mm.
eating disorders and just the ridicule and the hardship that she went through as being in that situation. It was very, very tough. And it got me thinking, like, do you know the Spice Girls, when they were really big from like what, 96?
Oh,
Like
earlier than that.
No, it was 96 Wannabe came out, right?
No, wasn't it 95?
I don't think so. Spice
Because Jerry
Girls
left the Spice Girls in
in 98.
98.
Yeah. It was released in 1996
Really?
on
Gosh.
26th of June. So did you know that that mega successful fame that they went through, where they sold over 20 million records and they're the biggest sort of girl vocal group of all time, or women vocal group of all time. That was less than 2 years that they went through before Jerry left, you know?
Yeah,
And so she left during their first ever tour. And
right.
so Melanie Seed was talking about how intense and how shocking it was to live through that and what it did to them all, and the trauma and um, the way that it impacted on them. It was very fascinating. I think you'd be interested in listening to it, even though I know you've got your issues with Louis Theroux,
I'll say.
um, and the way
Yeah,
he chats. But it is a very interesting story that she talks about. And what was also fascinating to me in this, sort of ties into that elite class of things that goes on here in the UK. She found out that her phone was being bugged or tapped, her voicemail messages, that big scandal that went on.
yeah.
So from when she first became famous in what did I
90,
say, 96,
96.
until about 2009. And she found out, and she's gone through all these different court cases. She talks about it where some of them, she got money out of them for it. Some of the court cases fell apart from lack of evidence. But she said every famous person she knows went through the same thing, but all of their phones, before people realized what was happening,
Mm.
like a decade of or more of being their phones tapped and,
It's
and left them tapped.
impossible to imagine what that would do to you. I mean, it's impossible to imagine what it would be like to go from being unknown to
Yeah.
being so famous and um, recognizable and pursued within
Yeah.
such a short amount of time. It would be very different for somebody who's, built up a career and became more and more popular over time, and they would have time to adjust. But to go from 0 to 100 so quickly,
Yeah.
what that would do to you. But then, yeah, to have such an intimate um, betrayal or invasion of your privacy. How do you say it?
I say
Pri-
privacy.
privacy. That's Australian privacy.
Yeah.
Um, what that would do to you for the rest of your life, and obviously there's no amount of money that could, you know, redress that. But God, yeah, I might listen
Yeah.
to it. I'll put my
And
my thoughts of Louis through
Yeah,
to the
and
side.
it's interesting how she talks about, talking about politics in this episode a lot. She talks about when Jerry came out and said, "Oh, Margaret Thatcher was the original Spice Girl. She had girl power." Do you remember that?
Hmm.
And Mel C is from like the Liverpool area, Widnes, and all of her family like worked on the docks, and it's very anti-Thatcher,
Hmm.
very working class. She said it was very hard for her. She would go back to Liverpool and people would scream at her in the street, being a class traitor or whatever, and yell at her because Jerry had said that stupid thing. And she's quite diplomatic about it with talking about Jerry. She said, "Look, we're all different people. We all came from different things, and often we'd say things in the spur of the moment that." We didn't know what we were saying. But,
Yeah,
yeah, she comes across as a
not
very down to earth
not like
person.
this, not like this very serious and thought through podcast that we do.
No. But anyway, you'll enjoy listening to her. She comes across as a very down to earth person who seems to have worked very, very hard to not be crazy,
Yeah,
with everything that she's gone
I
through.
mean,
She's had to work very hard.
I don't have any interest. Excuse me, I don't have any interest in her music, but certainly on a sort of activist level, she's very, very outspoken in her support for queer community, including trans community. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's
Well, yeah.
and that endears me to her, and endears
Well,
her to me.
after I listened to the podcast, I thought, well, I'll give her new album a go. I got halfway through it and I switched it off. And I'm not saying like it's awful, but it's not for me. Like
It's
it's
not for
not
you.
something that
Yeah, it's not for
I
here.
would be into. And also, it's funny, you'll hear it. Louis Theroux talks to her about how she was the best vocalist in the band.
Mm.
And I was just thinking to myself, shit, that was a low bar because Like,
well, yeah, but you look at the others and it's like, well, yeah, she actually is.
how did they all end up in that? It's hilarious. But she tells good stories about it, and I think you'll enjoy the history of
All
how they
right.
got
I
together and
will. I
everything.
will give it a listen. I might even put it in the show notes.
Okay. Right. Well, that might be it. We were going to talk about a giant spider, but maybe we can talk about
Oh,
that
fucking hell,
next
yeah.
time.
No, I can't. That's too many. There's already enough trauma in this episode. Right, I'm going to go and lie naked in front of my fan.
Oh, well, that's a nice mental picture for
Nice
anyone who
visual
wants to
for you
imagine.
all.
Is there anything coming up you need to tell people about?
I don't know. Is there? I probably should have thought of that before you asked me. No, just find me online if you want to. I'm Josh and the Jump Starts. Look up my Instagram or look up my music on Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music, etc.
If
What about?
anyone would like to come along to an event on the 21st of August, I'm running Queer Vegan Disco, which is a really fun night that Josh and I used to run. It's taking place in Wood Green, and it's exactly what it says. It's a queer vegan disco, and my mate Phil Marriott, who's like a superstar DJ here in London and also happens to be vegan, he's going to be DJing at the party. So the tickets are 10 quid, so maybe we can put the link in the show notes
Oh yeah,
for
and
anyone who wants to come along.
it's a vegan venue in North London as well, Caramel.
Yeah.
All right, folks, please do leave us a comment, hit subscribe, and let us know where we're going wrong. And we will be back in your feeds this time next week.
Okay. See you all.
Take care.
Bye.